So now we get to do the fun part. So the main rule with this, if you're not following the pattern, I'm sure you want to follow the pattern, is we don't want the thread traces that you're doing here to blend in too much, because otherwise, what is the point? Okay, we want a contrast, and the contrast works well because it then helps to soften this outlining a little bit. Whereas if you blend it all in, then it kind of just leaves that outline, and unless you've sewn it absolutely beautifully, the outline is just not that pretty. It gives it that nice sketchy look, but we want to make it look better. So we're going to pick this very nice thread, which is Tutti Cotton TU16. Just move the camera so that I can actually see what I'm doing, because you can see beautifully, but what I need to do is learn to be able to sew by looking in the camera, and then I wouldn't, I could just put it right in the way. So on the pattern, we've got thin lines and the fat lines, and I'm sure you've worked out by now the fat lines are for cutting fabric, the thin lines are the embroidered lines, and there's suggestions of them. So on this tulip, we're just going to add in some of the that kind of frilly bit that you get onto tulips on the edges, and they go kind of a kind of feathered look, almost going. So we're going to do that, and sometimes on these variegated threads, you're going to get an area where you're kind of really contrasting like that bit, and then other times it's going to kind of blend in. So you can always go back and do a little bit more if you feel like you've kind of lost some of the definition. So I'm basically just going around the shapes and just kind of adding a little bit more in, and you see that looks amazing now, you know. And we've kind of the outline is there, but it's softened it a lot. So I'll just do try and, I get asked about the outline and stuff, try and stitch in place a couple of threads, but otherwise you generally I always go past the place that I started, so that I am actually sewing over the top of it. So I think we're going to use this same thread over here, so just hop your way over to these clematis buds, go around the inner edge, so just inside the brown outline you've already done, and then just add a little bit of kind of shading towards the bottom of it, so it looks like there's something, well, the base of the bud. And you can also add in a kind of a petal shape to suggest it's kind of filled up. It doesn't need to be very exact on any of these things. Okay, I seem to have misplaced my little scissors, so we're just going to be using humongous scissors instead. Okay, so that's the first thread. So we're going to be going through threads fairly rapidly here. So the next one we're going to do, I think we're going to do all the easy bits first, and then we'll work on the else. So we're going to use a bright green for this tulip, and I've been using, oops, I made a break for it. I've been using this one a fair bit for this tulip, so I'm going to be consistent and use it in here, and then everything will go nicely. So this is a Fabulous polyester, and it is FB something, what does it say? FB 13, so I call them out in the pattern as we go along, but oops. They just make cool noises, isn't it, when you're threading it up? It pings off all the different bits. So, okay, so on this one we're going to be working on the tulips. I'm going to start at the top. Just trim that short enough that it'll stay out of the way. So on tulips, the leaf veins are kind of parallel lines. So we'll just go around the shape first. And they're often a little bit, this is kind of the central bit of the leaf really here, and they're often a bit more wiggly. So we're going to kind of echo that shape, add in a little bit more wiggles. Just making it look a bit more interesting. Jack's off again. Just seem to think that someone's there. I'm just going to check because he's barking quite a bit. There was some out the door, and it's a pain with having Jack bark, because people don't bother knocking or ringing the bell, because they're like, oh well, you must know, because like Jack's woofing away. And you're like, Jack woofs away at everything. You know, a leaf blows across and he's all, what to call it? You know, I can't get up and look every time. But I was expecting a parcel. So, with some tea in it. And I'm down to like my last 3 tea bags. So look, these are, I'll just, because you totally need to know about this in the middle of the pattern. This one is, it's so nice. This one is, it's chocolate digestive tea. And it's, oh, it's so nice. It tastes like tea, but chocolatey biscuity. And I also got butter brew, which is supposed to be a wizarding wonder of creamy caramel delight. Look at that. So it's supposed to be kind of a toffee flavoured tea. And this one says sponge cake flavoured. Sponge cake. So it's got black tea, freeze-dried raspberry, raspberry leaves, desiccated coconut and natural flavourings. How exciting is that? So I've been kind of anxious because I'm down to my last 3 cups of these teas. I've just got into them recently. So, and what keeps on happening is the postman, Jack barks, the postman doesn't knock, and then they take my parcel away, and then it's like 2-3 days before I can get it re-delivered. Which is like, it's, you know, and I'd have no tea. So anyway, right, carry on. And then I shall be sneaking off to have a cuppa. So there's some very, very sweet teas. Right, anyway. Yeah, okay. So trying to get my brain back into sewing. So we're going to sew these stems next. So when you're sewing the stems, sew all the way along, because that gathering thing that you can sometimes get is where you change direction too quickly and the thread doesn't have a chance to draw through. And that's really easy to do if you're actually fully changing direction. So you want to get it so that, get it close enough, that your stitch length, you can't really tell so much because I've done a couple of stitches, but your stitch length is a kind of a normal kind of sewing, 1 to 2 mil. And doing that and not changing direction, sewing all the way along, you get it so you see there's no gathering in there. It's all nice and flat. And I did 2-3 rows. So that's all we need for this thread. So I'm going to go and make a cup of tea. Okay, so I've made my tea. It's very nice. So this one, I've just threaded it up, but it's a cool variegated green. It's Silco SEM14, I think. So we're just going to use that in a couple of places. So we're going to go fill in the stem and then go around here. We're going to add a leaf vein onto this edge and exaggerate the dips in along here. And we're going to work along these darker clematis leaves. Actually, no, not. We're going to use this on the apple leaves. Okay, so I'll speed this up a little. So we're going to use this more of a moss green, slightly more muted than the one we used before. We're going to use that on the daffodils, the daffodil stem, and we're going to use it on these clematis. We will have to use this a separate time because there's a couple of threads that go in front of the owls, so and we'll obviously have to do those later. So you can see, as well as doing the those leaves that I said, I also use the same thread to do these buds. Now I took advantage when I was sewing of going down these stems rather than having all the loose ends, because I'm going to be sewing over these stems anyway, so no one's going to see them. So, and I also did this clematis stem here for the buds because that was a fairly major one. I think that's it. So we did the apple leaves, daffodils, and some of the stems and those buds. So that's looking very nice. So I think the next green we're going to need is more of a piney green, which is going to be TU31. This lovely one here. And we're going to use that for the muscari and the crocus leaves. And we've got a little branch here of something, I think it's supposed to be forget-me-nots, I think. So we're going to do those ones. Okay, so let's do these mascaras first. Now I've put these very low, so if you've done the same, we need to make sure that we keep within that quarter, or keep without. Remember your seam allowances, okay? Don't go into it, otherwise when we sew this to the block below, we're going to chop them off, which would be sad. So for here, I'm going to just sew this stem first, and then outline the leaves, and they're offset, and then go back and fill them in. And some of them will be turquoise leaves, and some of them will be green, and some of them will be a dark teal. It's just going to be the look of the drawer. And that kind of makes it look like we're doing something more complicated than we are, which is great. I'm all for things looking more complicated than they actually are. So that's that nice little branch of flowers in there. And then there's just these ones by the crocus here. And then that's most of the green in, so the only bits we're going to have really are just adding in some of the tendrils of the clematis later on. Okay, so we'll just trim those neat. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the blue for this mascara, and we're also going to add in the little flowers for the forget-me-nots. So I'm going to use a light blue, which is going to be TU21. This one here is very nice. Okay, so we've got this nice light blue. So with the mascaras, you want to start at the top, and they've got kind of they're made up of little bell flowers. So we're basically going to kind of sew loose loops. So make them a bit wonky, make some smaller than others. Try not to change direction too quickly, because obviously you're going to get those loops coming up otherwise. Just move over to the second one. Don't worry, I just kind of skipped over there, and you will get a little bit of thread crossing the outline, but no one's going to notice, and it just saves a bit of messing around. So that's those done. So you can see those nicely now. And I'm just trying to work out where my beginning thread is. I didn't chop it off. Right, so around here we've got some forget-me-not flowers. So those, they're very, oh dear, something didn't go right there, did it? Oh, can we carry on? I think that's because I felt something kind of catch, and I kind of just pulled it down and carried on. But we've got through it. So these are very kiddie little flowers, and again you can kind of just join them up. So 5 petaled little flowers, outline them, then fill them in. I don't seem to have quite as much space for these as I might have. Oh no, it's alright, we're good. Oh, foot pedal, somebody went a bit enthusiastic. And these are really nice when you sew them with variegated thread, because you know, you get some, we're having a little patch here of very light ones, and now we're going to go on and have some dark ones, and you can at that point, if you want, kind of go around them and, you know, change the colours a bit. So I think it's 5 flowers, however way you want to arrange them. Looking nice. Okay, so that's it for the blue, so we can end this one off. So next, oh, sorry, I just got the camera. Which bit do we want to do next? Don't want to do the owls, I'm pointing them off. It's not a huge amount to do other than the owls, is there? I think we're going to go and use some Jack's doing. We're going to use some yellow, and we've got some quite bright yellows in the block, which we haven't used in the quilt, which we haven't used here. So I'm going to use a brighter yellow. Which is, rather than, I've got like bright yellows and light yellows, and I'm going to use that one. It's TU01, And what I'm going to do is go around the daffodil, both the actual daffodil, its petals, as well as the cone. And then I'm going to go around, I'm going to use the same thread and do these primulas, which I'm pretty sure, I might have to look up, I'm pretty sure they're outlined, they've got yellow at the edges as well, haven't they, as the centres. I'll go and look up what the primulas actually look like. Okay, I've educated myself and I can't tell the difference between primrose and primulas. I think it might be one of those things where it's actually just like an alternative name in the same thing. There seems to be a huge variety. So the ones that I was thinking of have the big yellow centre in them, and they are frilled, but you can get them without. So I guess whichever way you fancy, but I'm going to go and do a kind of star. I like when I'm doing this kind of thing, it looks neater if possible if you can try not to cross your threads too many times, I think. So we're just going to give them a bit of a frilly edge around the petal. So just at that edge bit, just give it some gentle zigzags. And then I think this one's side, isn't it? So we don't want the central bit, we'll just put it around there. See, that looks really nice. Okay, so next we'll just zoom over to this daffodil. And they have a kind of fold up the petal. So this one's got its, sometimes they're forward, aren't they? And sometimes they kind of have their petals swept back. I think they're kind of having it's a windy day. And then the cones, I want it to be cones trumpet. To be kind of crinkled, so I've added some quite deep zigzags in there. Right, and I think that's all for this yellow. So we'll end this off here. So we've just got this purple to go here. So we're going to change to a variegated purple, and I'm going to go for a darker one. So we're going to go for TU18, and I'll just quickly whiz around that one. Better if I press record. So if I didn't record it, I was using SEM 20, which is a variegated pink. It goes from almost a white to a mid pink, and we're going to just sew around these clematis flowers. And I'm going to be, first off, we're just this petal here, I'll just add some. There's some quite thick layers here, so do take your time. Okay, so I'm going all the way around the petals. I'm going to do a very loose open star here because I want to leave some space for a yellow in the centre. So as before, we're trying not to cross the threads because I think it kind of looks messier when you get them crossed. So we're trying to keep it open. I'll just sew in place a couple of plays. Right, and there are a couple of other of these clematis flowers. So we'll do the same thing for those. And we're very nearly up to doing the owls. There's nothing else I can distract myself with. I don't know why I'm putting off doing the owls. Okay, and then this last one over here. I think it's because those owls look really cute and I'm a bit worried about mucking them up. Normally I do it the other way around, so if I'm worried about mucking something up, I just do it first as a kind of, eat the frog kind of thing. But I seem to be allowing myself to get away with it today. So let's trim these short, and then we're going to change over to a variegated light yellow, which is going to be TU03, and I'm going to use those on the apple blossom. So I'm basically going to be doing a star in the centre of here, again nice and loose, and then I'm going to be going around all the apple blossom, and I'm going to be doing it just in the same manner that I did here, so just around the edges and then star in the centre. And this one is TU03, so it's a lovely kind of colour. It's got yellow tones in, green tones, very soft orange, really nice, very useful thread. Okay, so next we're going to change to this one, which is Fabulux FB29, and it's got like pink tones in, peaches, oranges, a touch of yellow. Again, they're nice. They give a lot more. You know, if you're not quite sure what colour you want, then sometimes these are good. So I'm going to use this on this butterfly at the bottom here. And I'm going to be putting quite a bit of peach towards the centre of the butterfly, and then we'll add some darker tones on with one of the browns as we're doing the owl. So I'm basically just kind of filling in the central section. Must find. I've been wandering around with my cups of tea and I've put my scissors down somewhere. Okay, so looks very pretty. So we'll finish that one off. Right, I think I have put it off long enough, so we're going to be doing these owl next. So I could do with looking to see what colour these owls are. So the browns I'm going to be using are, I'm going to be basically using this lot. So I'll just work out, I'll have a look and see what the owls are supposed to look like first. Well, it looks like this, probably don't need these two. Looks like it's mainly going to be these and maybe, see that dark brown's nice, but it's got too much orange in it, so perhaps we'll go for a plain instead. So perhaps go for that one. Okay, so I'll tell you the details in a second. So we're going to start off with this one, which is one of the Silco ones. We seem to be in a bit of a Silco-y kind of day today. So this one is SCM23, and it goes from a kind of a darker taupe brown right through to a cream, but all cooler tones. So we're basically going to get the majority of the owl sewn with this one, and then we'll be a bit brave with the cream and the dark brown to kind of make it. Oh, look at that. It's not good, is it? Here's the problem with these threads, is they're quite thick, so it's easy to split them. So take your time. I know some people don't like using them, but if you take your time with them, then they're great, and the colours are so pretty. And because they are that touch thicker, it does give it a kind of more of a hand sewn look to it. So I'm going to be brave and start off with this on this darker section first, because it's going to really stand out here. So this is like a little bit of the wing coming through here and then into the collar. So we don't really need to do too much because, you know, the fabrics are pretty enough. So we'll just go around all the edges first. So here I'm going around this dark edge, but which isn't actually, there isn't actually an edge there because it's the other one. So onto the tail feathers. But I can make it look like there is by doing that. So on here, I'm just giving the occasional dips in to kind of make it look like we've got the kind of overlap of some of the feathers going on there. And again, while we're in this, we'll just add some more. So I'm just kind of exaggerating those dips in that I already did. And then we'll move on to this, the body feathers. Up onto the chest. So we'll just go give the breastbone there. Echoing some of the shapes there. Add a kind of a suggestion of where the wings kind of overlay. We've got it's kind of the legs area around here where, you know, so we'll just add some kind of shading to suggest there's a kind of leg thing going on. Okay, so that's all of his body, so we just need to be put in some, so I'm just going to some feather shapes. So you can kind of do like a vein on those, or echo the shapes a bit. We don't need to kind of do like all the feathers. We just need like the odd little bit, and then it kind of looks like, you know, the rest of them are there, but they don't stand out as much as some of these other ones. So we're giving him some nice tufty feathers, and he's already got the, yeah, see, that looks nice. And it's just adding a little bit. So onto the face. So I think first what we'll do is we'll go just around the outside to kind of get us in the zone. And we'll do the under side of the face here. Okay, and then basically we're sweeping out feathers from the face. So watch out for the beak there, we don't sew over it. So you're doing a kind of feathery loopiness, and we're going, I don't know if you can see that, that's what I'm doing there, but just a little bit around the eye. And we'll just go and do, so we're trying to make it look like the feathers are kind of sweeping out of the face. Okay, and then it's basically the same thing on here, except these are going to stand out a lot more. So sweep around the eye. So we're giving them some lovely little eyebrows here. Let's sweep around, and then a kind of away from the beak there. Like so. So I think that's this one done in this colour. So I'll just move over to him. Or her, I'm not quite sure what difference there is of whether we can tell what kind of, I think I just drew two owls, so I didn't really look into the, well, there's much difference between the girls and the boys. So around the face, well, around this kind of collar, and then pulling away from the eyes and the beak. And he's obviously got his eyes closed here. So it makes it a bit harder. He's not got a lot of space really to tell what's going on. So I might need to either change to a darker or lighter thread to kind of pull out the details a little bit more. Okay, but that's gone all around his face, or her face. So we're going to go onto the chest. So let's get that breastbone in. Then nice kind of tufty feathers here onto the legs. Now I haven't actually secured that edge there, so I'm just going to make sure that I really catch that down. And then the back's edge of the legs are going to be nice and feathery. Same under the hair into the undercarriage feathers, for want of a better word. So we can be quite have some fun with these ones. So really add some extra details and things on there. And then we'll go around the wing. And then I think on these things it's generally easier to start from the top than it is to kind of start from the bottom. So I'm just going to whiz all the way around twice, and then I'm going to start doing these more exciting wing feathers up here. So let's get some shapes down, and then I'm going to echo those and add some kind of like a, well, the feather shape. And you can see that I'm obviously just making this up as I go along. Okay, you don't, there is nothing exact about this. We're just giving a kind of feathery appeal. And then we'll do another row of them. And I'm trying to make sure that things don't get too smooth anywhere, so I keep on doing like a little jerk up. And then because sometimes we get the dark thread and sometimes we get the light thread, it really depends on which bits stand out. So we're just going to move over to the underneath of the wing here. And again, we can add in some more feathery shapes. all those done. So I'm going to pause a moment and see what we actually need in terms of, I think what we're going to do at this stage is we're going to put the eyes in and the beak in, and then we'll see, do we actually need any more? Because sometimes less is more on these things. We don't need to add like 1,000 threads if we don't need to. So on the eyes, they've got, oh, this one, they have yellow eyes for this type of owl, which I had forgotten, so they're going to stand out. And we're going to put a little black pupil in them. So this one, I think, is it's a designer polyester by Wonderful, and I think it's DS183. I think I'll check when I'm writing it up. Which is quite a nice soft yellow. It's a warm soft yellow. So we're going to fill in the eye here, leaving a little bit in the middle because there's no sense in making it all really hard to sew under. Over to the other eye. Now, looking at them, they kind of got yellow beaks. I don't know if I can bring myself to sew this yellow on the beak. I think we'll just put like a little bit, and then I think we'll use some cream to soften it up because I don't know. I prefer a cream beak, so we'll put a bit of yellow in it. Okay, it looks slightly mad now. Okay, so we'll trim these down, and then we're going to change to a black thread and give the right owl some pupils. Get in with my scissors. I must find some smaller scissors before doing that. So I'm threaded up with this black thread. I haven't bothered changing my bottom bobbin over. Sometimes I do, but these are not big pupils here, so I think we'll be fine, just even if a little bit of the grey does come up to the top. So try and keep them small and circular. And then we're going to move over here and we're going to put in the closed eyes. Now, you either want to do these straight or a slight... So I've just sewn and then back. So either straight or a very slight kind of rainbowy curve. So and then that should make them look friendly. Well, sharper scissors, little sharp scissors. There we go, I found them. So just trim these short. Quite cute, especially the one with the closed eyes. Yeah, so that slight curve makes him or her look friendlier. I might just, I'm not cut that incredibly neatly. I need to find some better sharp scissors. So this black, by the way, was DS431. But I mean, black's black really. It's not. Oh, I haven't put the bottom thread. I'm going to say it's going. I don't know. Right. Okay, so next we're going to change to this cream here, which is what is it? It's a Silco cotton, and this is SEM24. So we're just going to use this to fill in those beaks, and we're just going to bring out the brows a little bit, in part just because they're a little bit hairy, a little bit more raggedy than I'd like because of they were very thin strips, so it was a bit difficult to get them neat. So we're just, by putting some more thread on, we can really make sure that we did actually catch it all down. And fill in that beak. I've sewn over that a few times, we'll have to ferret that out in a minute. And then likewise for this owl over here. Okay, I think that's So do we need anything else? I kind of feel like we could just use maybe just on the right owl, we could just do with maybe bringing out the shape of the eyes a little, just to kind of make them pop a little. I don't think we need to worry about it on the so I'm going to use this dark brown, which is a designer polyester, and it is DS896, and we're just going to give a very quick sweep of the eye with a very slight, to give the eye a little less of that round look. Doesn't need very much because they do have kind of quite piercingly round eyes, don't they, owls? So I think just a little bit. So I'm going to start off at the base of the eye. Hopefully I slightly went up there, so hopefully I haven't made him look cross there. So again, I'm not going all the way around. Yeah, I think that helps. It's a kind of a slight eyelash without. So by not going all the way around, it's a bit like makeup, isn't it? So you don't always want to define the whole shape of your eye, otherwise it can look prettier too. So we're giving our makeup lessons. It can look prettier. It can make your eye look too small, bringing it in like that. So the next bit we're going to do, we've just got basically the branches to do, and we're going to change to this variegated white. I'm going to be very, very carefully put a little bit of a highlight in the yellow section, which may or may not be a mistake. We shall find out. I do like to put a highlight in them. I may add a little bit of white to the brow. Again, let's see as we get there whether we feel it needs it. Less is often more. Okay, so this was a Tutti Cotton TU41, which isn't quite a... Yeah, I definitely need to find a better pair of scissors to cut some of these threads a little shorter. You can see it's not trying to get it. It's got like a hairy eye now. Right, something to find later when I'm not. So I'm going to put it on this side of the eye. Just a couple of stitches following the curve of the eye, and then same thing on this side here. There's not a lot of space, so if you did feel like you wanted to do this but prefer to sew it by hand, then I won't think anything less of you. So I'm just going to, because they do have this real eyebrow thing, so I'm just going to follow across with the white thread just a couple of times to really bring out that shape a little more. And we'll do the same thing on the owl here. So and I think that's enough for them. So yeah, I just need a sharper pair of scissors just to cut those really flush. I should have a little pair of purple ones somewhere, which are my really sharp ones. Right. So the last bit, I think, is going to... two last bits. The last bit, we're going to need this green back again, but we're just going to use this one for now, which this one's looking a bit... I think Jack got it at some point, my dog, and I think I just kind of cut it neat after and got some of the bit off his slobbered, but there seems to be about 20 ends on it, and bizarrely when I'm sewing I never seem to come across an end, so I don't know if it's like the very last bits are going to be just all... I've been using it for like ages, like years, and I never seem to come across an end. But they're all sticking out, so presumably something. is going to happen at some point. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do all these little branches with this one. So this one is SEM 25. So although we're near the end here, don't rush at filling these in. I'm kind of feeling tempted because I've got the kids out of the house today, and we've got the half-term holiday coming up, and it's a lot harder to get on with anything when everyone's home. So it's kind of tempting to rush through this today because I've got kind of quite a number of days where I'm going to either be sewing in the evening or with someone asking me a billion times for things. But we're doing this the same way as the branches, so taking your time, filling them in, trying to be careful of your change of direction. So, you know, when you are changing direction, consider just a couple of stitches in place before you turn around. Can make the difference between not gathering it and ending up with a very puckered area. And then this one here. And don't worry if you end up with some flowers which don't appear to have any visible means of stems and things like that. It's fine. We don't need to make, my owls are not, atomically correct in every way. A few stems or flowers kind of floating around is absolutely fine. So the last thing to finish is just to put some of these kind of tendrils from the clematis. So I seem to have threaded up with this Fabulux FB 13 instead of the one that I used for them, but never mind. I'm going to stick with it now. So we're just going to do some nice sweeping curves here. Just stand out nicely. Right, there's that one there, and there's another one over this side. Which actually, the way I've done it, there isn't really space for one, but we'll find a space for it. I'll just add it in. Yeah, I think this flower went wandering at some point. Oh, look at that! You can see. Can you see? I've just tied a knot around around the foot. I then sewed over that thread like about 50 billion times. So I don't think that's technically in the pattern, but I'm going to add that in anyway. Okay, so we're going to cut all these short now and then give it a press if you haven't been pressing it as you've gone along. So I must admit I haven't. But oh, do you know what we forgot? This butterfly. So we're going to go to, I knew I picked that one for some reason. So this one is it's kind of a weird one really. It's Tutti Cotton and it's TU 34, and it goes from pretty much a black down to a burgundy and kind of light chestnut brown, which I find sometimes is a little difficult to use because the black really does stand out a lot, but for this butterfly that will be very nice. Just what we need. So I'm going to be concentrating on putting some colour on the tips of the wings. see it really going between the colours there. And I didn't actually put a body on this, so I'm going to just add that in now. And then kind of echo some of these shapes a little. Put a spot in there while I've got a black thread on. Okay, I think that's enough. Okay, so I think that's done. So let's go and have a look. So the next thing to do is to remove all the freezer paper stabiliser from the back. So I'm just holding with my left hand to support it all, especially on anything which has got kind of like a tendril or something, just so I'm not putting undue stress on any of it as I'm going. It's a good idea to remove each block as you finish rather than leaving it to the last minute, because when you've only got one to do, you tend to do a good job with it. And if you've got four and all in one go, you know what I mean? So, and you don't remove as much. And it depends what you're doing, but if you are going to quilt it, try and remove as much as possible. Don't worry too much about the bits which have got the applique on, but these kind of just background bits, if you leave them in when you quilt it, it's going to make it not be able to puff up as much because you've stiffened it there. So you kind of, you lose some of the effect of your quilting, which is a shame if you're going to make the effort to quilt it all nicely. And it also just makes the quilt feel stiff. If you wash it, then you will. This papery one does kind of, certainly it's like washing the tissue. It does give in a little. Right, nearly there. And then I don't tend to bother, especially on this depth of background, I don't tend to bother cutting the thread short on the back because it just helps hold everything in. If you've got a bit where you've got a very light background colour and a dark thread, then you might notice that in time. So I would take those ones out, but this is all quite bold background on the whole, and I've not got much going on the how nice is that? So for the threads, sometimes I can't, if you've got like some of these very loose threads, one of these, you know, cat fur rollers, quite good for picking up just some of the little fluffy bits that have accumulated as you've been working, and then just trim anything short. God, I don't know what my scissors have done today. I find a pair of kitchen scissors and it's not good. Let's try these ones. So people do worry about them fraying, but if you sew this down enough times, there shouldn't be anything amazing happening on the frame. The worst bits you tend to get are where you've got like just off the grain. So you might find like here that happens. But I mean, personally, that doesn't bother me. But if it does, just deliberately fray it and then cut it short, and then, well, that's it. It can't keep doing that because you've sewn it down nice and securely. So let's give it a press. It's quite sweet, isn't it? So let's have a look. What else do we need? Got a couple of loose threads around the eye area there. And I still need to try and cut that one short. And I think I would say that was done. And very nice it looks too. So next job is to get the panels together.